In this week's episode, I'm just going to make a lure. But there's one rule. I can't use electricity. I need lights though. I'm not going to work in the dark. Probably hurt myself. So first things first, I gotta draw something up. So I drew that on cardstock paper because it's thicker and I can't just throw this in a printer or a scanner and make a copy because that's using electricity. I'm going to need to be able to peel it back off and use the gills that I drew as stencils and then use the wires that I drew for the wire form too. For this bait, I'm going to be using aspen wood. Can't cut that out on the bandsaw. Got to use one of these. I haven't used a coping saw in years. Messed up a little bit right there, but got back on track right there on my way down. Whoops. That was a lot of work just to get it cut out. Okay, now I'm gonna probably use a chisel and a rasp and some sandpaper and get this profile more accurate, not so raggedy. I think I was going for a perch when I drew this out. That's kind of what it's starting to look like. But that's the profile. Now I'm going to give it some shape from this direction. Kind of taper the end and taper the head. Before I cut through that, I should take this paper off. Hopefully it comes off nicely. Well, actually, I gotta cut that lip. I should do that right now. So I'm gonna transfer right here and right here, parallel across the bait. So the lip slot's cut. I don't have to take this piece out yet, but now I can move up back to cutting the profile of the bait and taking the paper off. Oh. I think I can still use that. The paper tore, but I think I can still use the stencil for the gills. Now I can finish this cut. Coming up on the line a little too close. There we go. Now I'm coming off of it a little too much. If I was using power tools, I wouldn't care how close I am or not to the line because I can just make it perfect with the disc sander afterwards. That's alright. Not even at all, but I'll just have to sand it down to the line. I've noticed so far you really got to be aware of a lot more stuff if you're not going to use power tools while making a bait. Because I guess essentially what I'm doing is just using hand tools to make this lure, and there's a lot more you gotta like control. So I just used the utility knife to get the lure to this point where the profile is all squared out, and I got the blocked out shape of the lure. So now I think I'm going to finish cutting that lip slot, and then I'm going to start rounding off this profile. It's all squared off. Fits into the lip material really snug too. 1/8 inch thick Lexan polycarbonate. So now I'm going to mark out the chamfers, essentially the material that I'm going to be cutting off of every corner, and cut all that off. So I've got the bait clamped up in the vise pretty tight, and I'm going to cut the line, or I'm going to cut the slot where the wire is going to go into. Ow. Cut myself a little bit. That tends to be when you hurt yourself, is when you're doing stuff you're not used to. This is a really sharp saw too. There. Slot's cut. Trying to get the slot thicker with some sandpaper so that this wire will fit in. So next I need to chisel out a mortise in the belly of this bait where the weight will be. And I'm going to do that with this 1/4 inch chisel. I would use a drill, like a drill press, or even a brace and bit, but I don't have a brace and bit, so I'm going to do it the really old school way. There, that's not bad. I think that's... I can just check for real. Just a bit over a 1/4 inch. I think I'm going to do more. I think I'm going to bring this closer up to where the lip is. Right about there. So I broke it off all the way up to the lip. I didn't mean to. That was an accident, but I can still make it work. I'm going to put the wire in, then I'm going to cut the lip out, install the lip, and then I'm going to weigh the bait. But before I do any of that, I'm going to smooth all this out so it's not so rough. There's the through wire form for it. So I got the wire all stuffed down in there into the slot. Now I'm going to fill it with super glue to keep it secure. So the wire's not going anywhere. I'm going to go cut out the lip, get that fitted, and then I'm going to weigh it. You know what? I'm just going to glue that on later. So I'm pretty deep into this build right now, and I guess my initial thoughts are electricity is a good thing. I give it the thumbs up. It's very helpful. But it is getting kind of obvious, like without electricity, you need more skill. There's a lot more dexterous things that you need to be really good at, or better at than I am, in order to be consistent and make baits, or anything for that matter, with consistency. But I'm liking this. It's interesting to be doing something different like this. There. I made that little piece of wood with a notch in it to be able to cut with the coping saw a little easier. Alright, now I got some filing to do. Now I need to cut a slot in the middle so this isn't in the way of the through wire. The lip won't seat all the way because the wire's in the way, so I just got to cut a notch. There we go. That'll be the lip. So now I'm just going to run the sides of the lips through some progressively higher grits of sandpaper, and then I'm going to polish it just so it looks good. So I can't use the buffing wheel, and I can't use a Dremel. The only thing left that I got that I might polish this lip is a leather strap. See if this even works. Oh, it does. It works pretty good. Jeez. Works just the same as a buffing wheel, it seems. Not bad. Pretty much see-through. So now I just need to get this lip glued in. And the securest way I found to glue in a lip is just scuff it up a little bit with some sandpaper. Just use normal super glue and glue it in. I mean, you can make the connection stronger. You can pin it in. The epoxy clear coat will kind of envelop it a little bit and make it stronger. But if you properly super glue a lip in, I've never seen them come out. You just got to get it everywhere and get it where it needs to be as fast as you can, and then don't move it. So I'm going to let that glue set up, and then I'm going to add the weight. And I can't just pour some melted lead into there because my lead pot is electric. So I got to come up with something else. So 5-minute epoxy and some microspheres are in here. And then Once I fill this cavity up with this, I'm going to drop some birdshot in there. I still add the microspheres to the epoxy. That way it's easier to sand down. It's hard to tell if it needs more. I think there's quite a bit in there though. Yeah, there comes a point when you're dealing with epoxy, it seems like it stops being adhesive and it becomes cohesive and it just only sticks to itself. And that's when you can kind of use a tool and shape it to how you want before you start carving. I'm going to mix up some more and cover up this slot in the front. So I just traced these gills onto some stencil paper. I'm going to transfer that to the bait. Now I'm going to get those carved into this bait. So I'm just going to take a Forstner bit and by hand twist it until I cut an eye socket for both sides on this bait. There's one. There's another. Didn't work too bad. Now I just need to get these details all sanded, get everything looking smooth. Dip it in some sealer, and it's ready to paint. So, first step to getting this bait painted is just painting it white with a brush. So while I'm waiting for that white to dry, I took the stencil that I was using and I stenciled it onto some flashy tape. It's got kind of a gold holographic, it's not really a specific pattern, it's just super flashy stuff that you can peel off, stick to your lure. I'm going to use that on this bait. Since I can't use electricity, I can't stencil on scales or anything sophisticated like that. I thought the lure tape would be a good substitute to get some sort of pattern on the side. So since this stuff's on a clear filament that's flexible, it's pretty easy to lay it down, and it's pretty flexible to work with. Some heat helps too. Why am I so shaky today? Both sides are shiny. There's just some green on the flank, top shoulder. So all I got left to do now is give it the black stripes. I always think it looks better with some black around the eye. Last step, just glue on an eyeball. Now it looks like a fish. So in order to get a smooth, even clear coat on this bait, I'm mixing up some 30-minute epoxy, and I'm just going to apply it and then turn the bait around in my hand a lot so it coats the bait and it stays even and it doesn't glob up in one spot. I'm going to have to turn it around in my hand for like 10 minutes. It's usually how long it takes for the epoxy to hold itself up and not drip. Tip, no, leave it. Ew, leave it. Leave it. Poor fly. Actually, good boy. There's too many flies out here. And there we go. The finished bait made with no power tools, no electricity. So now Chelsea and I are going to go somewhere, see how this bait runs, get some good video of its action. Then in the next video, I'll be fishing with this bait. Well, crankbait works good. I'm gonna fish with it. Should be able to catch something. I mean, we're definitely going to catch something. How could we not? I don't know. I guess you could make your predictions. Comment below, am I going to or not? That's kind of dumb. Ended up not being that big of a deal, not being able to use power tools or electricity. Just took longer, but was kind of able to make the same thing. Not a problem. On to the next bait. Need to say it a little better.
Me?
On to the next bait.
Did it land yet?